Love, it has been good to me this time around. Things were they were bound to change when it was found. Sugar never tasted sweeter on my lips. My heart is now intact and I can find
good evening and welcome to today's episode of the X-RAD show, the talk show that really gets you talking on the Xandermonium network, live from New York City. I'm Xander Gibb.
And I'm Margret Echeverria.
Oh, yes, sir. On today's show, the very hottest of topics, and in part 2, it will be your turn to tell us exactly what you think. More to come in a mere moment. You can, my brain just died then. I'm sorry. You can interact with us. You can tweet us. The tweet deets are on the Xrad Facebook show page for today. You can comment in the feed around the live video, and you can also call us later via Facebook Live. More to come in a mere moment. Welcome back to the show. Margret, how is the world with you?
Well, things are good. You know, I had to get a new compressor for my Uber car today, which was $538. Thank you very much.
Wow.
But it was, you know, it's great. That means that when it's 90 degrees next week, my passengers will be happy and cool because, you know, passengers just aren't going to put up with that, so...
No, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to pay to be in a vehicle that didn't have, air conditioning, especially when it's really hot. But I've had that before. I've been on road trips before where there's been no AC, and people are like, oh, just crack a window. Like that does the same thing. So you've got hot air kind of beating down upon you, and you've got. You've got you're sweating you're sweating like I can't think. You're sweating like Mike Pence at a gay wedding.
Right.
You see,
it's fine when you're 20.
Yeah.
But, when you're not 20, it's not okay to
No.
feel like that. It's very uncomfortable.
Well, I suffer with breathing problems. I have asthma related stuff. I'm bad today because it's been humid. And I went to Grand Central once to go and see my sister, and I'm there with my trolley bag, and I got to next to the train, and it was so hot, and there was all the kind of vapors coming from the train. I really thought that's it, that was it for me.
That's worse when there's exhaust fumes and pollution, and it's hot and it's sticky. I never had air conditioning in my home until I moved to New York City.
Really?
There's something about the way the humidity and the air gets really still and hot in New York City in July that I just couldn't tolerate.
But you've lived in England too. I lived in England for quite some time, and they don't have it there. It's like, oh, can't you put a fan on? It's like, it's 98 freaking degrees. What's the fan gonna do but move around the warm air? Did you not find that when you lived there?
Oh, it was awful. It was awful. There was just no understanding either. There was no understanding of cross breezes or anything like that. And I was in the south of France during that summer when it was 104 degrees for about 2 weeks, and a bunch of people died. And it was because they would sit and drink the cool wine that was cooled in the caves, and they would sit in the sun, and then they would wonder why they were dying.
Right, exactly.
And they had no understanding of cross breezes or how to open up a house so that you can get some air circulating, because they'd never really dealt with that kind of heat before.
No.
It was tough. That was really a tough time.
Yeah, I don't think I could do with that. What I tend to do, because obviously, we all want to kind of, watch those nickels, because the dollars will look after themselves. But what I tend to do in the summer is I have a ceiling fan, like I have one either end of the house. So I open the back room door, and I put the one on in the front room too. And I have the fan on, and the AC is in between the rooms. And so what I do is I have both the fans on. I have the air conditioner on in the middle, so the air gets circulated. I have it on for an hour, then I leave it off for an hour, and I do it like that because I would rather be poorer, should I say? Buy my album. Where did that come from? I would rather be poor than too hot, because they think that it's harder to cool yourself down than it is to warm yourself up.
Right. It's tough, especially if somebody has rosacea like I do. The heat actually is painful. So
yeah,
that's tough. That's really tough. But it's a good idea to just keep it as cool as you can, and to not be silly about it. Close your curtains.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. Don't make your AC work too hard.
Or do a Homer Simpson and open your freezer door and sit naked in front of it and put a sheet over the top, so you've got like a cool room thing going on. Just don't invite your in-laws around. I tell you,
and get a good landlord who's like mine, who invests in insulation, for goodness.
Yeah. I have a pretty good landlord, but I brought my own AC with me because, some places when you rent, you go to look around, it's like, where's the freaking air conditioning? They're like, oh, there are fans on the ceiling, sir. That will do you. And it's like, hell no, that ain't cutting it. But yes, I definitely think it is something to kind of be considering now, because we're actually getting to that time. And if you're like an older person, or you're someone with health problem, these are all things that you need to think about, because they say a cold kills the old, but so does extreme heat. So you should start thinking about these things now. And if you don't have a air conditioner, go and steal one from Home Depot, but don't tell them I told you to. I should be careful, because
you have to think about bacteria as well, and because in those hot, humid weather conditions, things tend to grow, mold and spores, and germs, and the allergens become more dense because the air is more dense. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. And it's important to keep, really, if you could just live at 68 degrees at all times.
Yeah, that would be perfection, wouldn't it?
That would be perfection.
I just want to say hello to a few people, well, to everybody in the live feed, because so they feel included. Hi to CV Burton. Hi to Chet, who's going to be my co-host on Thursday night. Thanks for stepping in there, buddy. Hi to David Guthrie, who I think is new to our fold. Hey to Zal. Good evening, sir. Hi to Gina B. Welcome. Hey to Dave. Welcome. Hello to Joan. You are most welcome. Hey to Christopher. Welcome to the show. Hello to who else is there? I have to get glasses, I can't keep doing this squinty thing anymore. I'm pretending everything's okay. CV says he has asthma too. Yes, sorry to hear that. Gotta be so careful in this upcoming weather. Hello to Daniel Keaton, who thinks he's clever and is referring to me as Meatloaf. You're banned! Hello to Tommy. Hi to everybody who's in the watching the video but not in the live feed. Come and join us. Come and tell us what you think and get involved in the conversation. Oh, yes, sirree. Now, I want to ask you, just before we get started, because we're going to jump into hot topics now, and it's going to get really heated, and Margaret and I are going to scratch each other's eyes out verbally. No, not really. And if you could click the share button, that would be great. I know some of you have an aversion to that, but it is free. It's not taxable. If you click the share button, your life will be better, I assure you. Isn't that right, Margaret?
Yes, absolutely. Much better.
Absolutely. So let's jump into our first topic of the day, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, involves a gentleman named Donnie, because he features quite heavily in our conversations on this show. So, after the London attack, the terrorist attack, the weekend, there's been a lot of back and forth on Twitter. And the White House defended President Trump's tweets that were accused of targeting London Mayor Sadiq Khan, saying that he was, I had to stop myself from being rude there, Sadiq Khan, that he was not trying to cause trouble with Khan. I don't see that the president is picking a fight with the Mayor of London. All Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said at a recent press briefing. I think, again, the president's point is something he said, frankly, back almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when the president talked about how we have to be more committed to national security. Now, one of the reasons we have the travel ban here through that executive order is a focus on national security. That was the point he was trying to make. Trump had first criticized Khan on Sunday, tweeting that at least 7 are dead and 48 wounded in the terror attack, and the mayor of London says it's no reason to be alarmed. Now, on Monday, Mr. Trump added pathetic excuse by the London mayor Sadiq Khan, who had to think fast on his no reason to be alarmed statement. Now, a spokesperson for Khan on Sunday called Mr. Trump's remark ill-informed and said it took the mayor's words just out of context. Can't talk tonight. So just like terrorists are constantly evolving and finding new ways to disrupt us, harm us, and attack us, the police and experts and all of us are finding new ways to keep us safe, Khan said. But really, that's not working in practice, is it, Mr. Khan? Londoners will see an increased police presence today and over the course of the next few days. What about the days after that, Mr. Khan? The Trump administration on Thursday appealed to the Supreme Court to review and reinstate the travel ban, hoping the court will overturn the lower court rulings that have stalled the executive order from being implemented. Referring to the executive order as a travel ban, Mr. Trump also refuted what his administration officials and spokespeople have said in the past about the executive order. People, the lawyers and the courts can call it whatever they want, but I am calling it what we need, and it is a travel ban. Now, first of all, we've not discussed the latest terror attack, Margret, but obviously we can agree that it was inexcusable. But I have been very concerned by some of the commentary of Sadiq Khan, including the fact that he said, this is something we have to kind of get used to. And that infuriates a lot of people. Now, I know that a lot of people will say, Mr. Trump overreacts and blah, blah, blah. But I think with regards to national security and terror issues, there is no overreaction, is there?
Well, I think maybe Sadiq Khan misspoke when he said it's something that we have to get used to. I think what he means is that we must be vigilant. We must be aware that this sort of thing is going on.
Right.
And we must have our antenna up. Let's not walk out into the world unconscious. But God, can you just imagine for a moment being on that bridge, minding your own business, walking over the Thames? It's a beautiful bridge. I love walking over London.
Me too.
I've done it many times. And it's just such a pleasure. And so you're lost in the pleasure of it. And then all of a sudden there's these knife-wielding villains who are, stabbing people to death. I can't even begin to imagine that kind of terror. So, we have to be on our toes. And
we do.
I think that Trump jumped the gun in his tweet, and I think that he did indeed misunderstand what Sadiq Khan was trying to say. He was trying to say that there were more police coming to the scene to help, and there was no reason to be alarmed that the incident was still going on just because they're seeing more police come. And I think that Trump just misinterpreted it and then was not willing to correct his mistake.
Well, this is where we'll have to agree to disagree, because for me, I kind of think that when you take into account a lot of the commentary that Sadiq Khan has made has been complicit with a lot of the things that have been going on of late, and that's of concern. Because this is the first time he's outright condemned these actions, and that's a problem for me. I don't want to generalize about all Muslims, because none of the Muslims that I know want to blow people up and kill people, etc., etc. But if you can't call it for what it is, if you can't call it radical Islamic terrorism, if we can't name our enemy, why is the damn point? And I understand why Donald Trump has got his back up, because, you know, all of the actions that he's tried to implement with regards to these travel bans are actually about protecting Americans. And I just wonder, you know, God forbid, you know, but I just wonder how many more people need to be killed, how many more Americans need to be killed before the American public will see that that is his motivation. I mean, forget about everything else. We've lost too many people already to these idiots. And the thing is that this to me, this is like a sect. You know, these jihadis, these that are getting it in their brain that that's what the Quran is telling them to do, really don't speak for most Muslims. But when you're going and stabbing people and driving cars into them, there's a tendency to generalize, and whilst I don't think that's a good thing, I can see why it happens. But, you know, it's like, when I use the example of the Westboro Bastard Church, yes, I did pronounce it properly. As a Christian, they don't represent me. And when they go and protest at the funerals of sailors and people that have died in pursuit of keeping us safe, it infuriates me. But I think it's imperative to speak out against them as a Christian. So I know a lot of Muslims are scared, but I still think it's imperative to speak out, because when they don't, silence is seen as complicit.
You're in a cult. Call your dad. You know, I mean, that's what's going on here. Is that these people are in a cult. This is not Islam, and I think that I think that the hesitation of liberals to call it, you know, radical Islamic terrorism is that we really want to separate it from Islam entirely, because it's not Islam. It's not what is taught in the Quran, this kind of behavior. And also, I think that I do want to point out that there has been a report recently that a lot of the imams in the UK have refused to say any prayers or perform any funeral services for these bastards.
Right.
I think that's marvelous.
I
think that's wonderful. So they are, you know, these are Islamic leaders who are speaking out and saying, no, not part of us, and not going to include them.
Right, and that's great, and it's needed. It's been necessary for a long time. But you know, here's the problem for me. There are ignorant people out there who can't separate your average Muslim from a terrorist. But when they see your average Muslim not speaking out against these things, you know, when you see bitches like Linda Sarsour with this. With her pictures with this ISIS support finger, it is infuriating as an American to see that, because there is blood on this statement, and I think it's going to get to a point where we're going to have to sort the wheat from the chaff with all of this, and you're either with us or you're against us, you know, and if you are against America, then you're against all of us. And if you think it's appropriate for Sharia law and for ISIS to be killing and beheading people, then maybe you need to go live with ISIS.
Yeah, it's very scary for these people. I mean, you have to think about it. I mean, it's a heck of a lot easier to be a liberal up against a conservative in this country than it is to be a, you know, someone who's in a cult calling themselves Islamic up against a, you know, run-of-the-mill Muslim person. It's a lot scarier, because these people will kill you without hesitation. And I think when we get infuriated with the people who are sort of walking the line in kind of a disgusting way between Islam and these freaks, I think, then we need to turn our eyes and look at people like Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who, doesn't take any of it lying down, and has had to surround herself with very expensive security to continue to live the life.
I want to bring, I don't know if you're watching the chat, Margaret, and I don't want you to feel offended by this, but I want to point out something that someone said, because I feel that you should be able to defend yourself on this. It says, I guess Margaret would like to have Sadiq Khan as her mayor. That way, when Muslims, her or her friends or her family, he can explain to her that she needs to be tolerant of Muslims that want to hurt her. What a joke. No, I know that's not what you're saying, so I want you to respond to that if you feel appropriate to do so.
I think that Sadiq Khan is doing the best that he can under the circumstances that he is under. I think that he is a diplomat first, and that he is a member of the Muslim religion, and you have to be careful. You have to really draw a line. You have to separate. My mother is Muslim. She's not going to stab you on the London Bridge.
Your mother is Muslim?
Yes, my mother is Muslim.
I never knew that.
So, but she's a Sufi Muslim. She is into the mysticism of it. She is not into hard and fast laws that don't make any sense to her.
Right, but
she is much more into the spiritual aspects of it.
I totally get that, and as I said several times in the show tonight, none of my friends who happen to be Muslim, want to kill people or behead people. But I think it's important that we recognize, and this is really something that has to be hit home, and that's that the peaceful majority are irrelevant. In Nazi Germany, it wasn't your average German that you needed to be concerned about. Those that weren't fighting weren't the ones you need to be concerned about, because the peaceful majority is irrelevant. And
I agree with you. I agree with you, Xander, that the peaceful majority need to become more active and need to speak out more. I absolutely agree with that. But I just want to recognize that is really, really, really frightening, and for them, as much as it was for the peaceful majority in Germany.
Right.
They were thrown into the camp.
Oh, I'm sure anybody that was anybody that disagreed with the Nazis in Germany were seen as collaborators. But I think we've come a long way since then, don't you?
No? Sorry?
I think we've come a long way since then, and I don't think that if you're a peaceable Muslim, that if you're standing up and saying these things like, not in my name and whatever else, that ISIS is actually going to come after you. And you know what? This is the thing. I think if you're a Muslim and you believe you have a relationship with God, or if you call him Allah, I think that you have to be right before your God, before you're right before other people, because the concern is that living in this well, I can't even think of the word, living in this bullshit that we can't offend people is what's got us into this situation in the first place.
Well, I agree with that. I think you know that I get very, very upset about people wearing full hijab in the United States.
Yes.
That really upsets me, because we don't know who you are. We cannot identify you. I can't walk into a bank wearing sunglasses. That is not a legal thing to do.
Wow.
Yet you can walk into a bank wearing full hijab. Go forth and reproduce yourself. That's ridiculous.
Right.
We do not wear costumes in this country.
No.
It is illegal to wear costumes in public. And a full hijab is a costume. And that irritates the heck out of me. And it's because we feel guilty for all of this oppression that we have forced upon the Middle East. And let's get honest, we've definitely done that. And because
have we? How have we?
Yes.
Expand on that.
God, Xander, darling.
No, expand on that, because I don't see that we've been impressive to them, but I would like you to.
We installed dictators. We installed Saddam Hussein. I mean, let's get real.
I don't think we installed Saddam Hussein. I think we didn't do anything about who installed him then, Margaret, because I don't know who installed him.
We installed him a long time ago. I believe it was
Yeah,
in the 70s.
who's this we?
Installed him. As the government, we ran secret ops to get him in there, and then when he didn't serve us anymore, we got him out. And we also, made Gaddafi into far more of the villain than he was because we didn't want to upset Syria at the time, when really we should have gone after Syria. Syria has ruined everything in this world. And it was much more convenient to go after Gaddafi at the time because it was politically prudent for us. We've done terrible things.
Of course, and as has the United Kingdom and various other countries,
Yes.
but I still can't.
I mean, the United Kingdom broke up Saudi Arabia, and I mean, that's what Lawrence of Arabia was all about, was what we were doing over there, what the United Kingdom was doing over there. It's very oppressive, not to mention what the United Kingdom did to Egypt. So, I mean, so we have guilt about this. And
I think
that guilt should not extend to tolerance of a bunch of people who come to our Western nations and insist that they don't have to assimilate. That's wrong. That bothers me.
right.
It also bothers me when they send all their money home. I don't like
Yeah.
that either.
Because let's face it, our forefathers that came here had to be vetted. They came from different countries. They had to assimilate, and that was the done thing. So if you
excise little girls on kitchen tables in this country.
No, exactly right. I just think that in order to move on from this, and in order to grow, something's got to change. Because far too often, people are having this opinion, oh, we don't want to offend Muslims. You know what? If you're a Muslim and you're offended by my commentary, I won't apologize for that. Because What?
Let's ban cults.
Let's ban...
Cults. People who are in cults.
Yeah, but don't you think that a lot of people
It's much easier to define. It's much easier to define.
But don't you think that some people would define Islam as a cult?
I think people would define what we're calling, in this conversation, radical Islam as a cult.
Okay, I'll concede to that. I'll concede to that.
If you're not to associate with anybody who is not Muslim, then you're in a cult.
Yes, you are. You are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we should work very, very hard to make that unacceptable. Just socially unacceptable. You're not going to survive in this country if that is your belief system.
Well, I want to move on from this, but I think that I think it's imperative to actually see this for a lot of it for what it is. We have not learned anything from what happened in Europe. We've not learned anything from France and Germany. They brought all of these refugees, in parentheses, into the country without vetting them properly. Germany's a shithole.
Vetting as we are.
France.
They're just not as good at vetting as we are.
They're not. But look at the detriment that it's brought to them for not being as good as we are. And then the left, and I'm not directing this at you. Then the left want to make Mr. Trump as the big bad Don because he wants to keep Americans safe. I think every time there's an incident of this ilk, it should make us say, vet it more. Extreme vetting. Because, the thing is that our ancestors that came to this country were vetted, whether you actually see it that way or not. When they came to Ellis Island, they were kept there for a couple of weeks to be checked out, to find out who they are, to see if they were desirable, see if they were worthy of coming into the United States. So if it was good enough for our ancestors, why is it not good enough for people that are supposedly seeking refuge?
Look, I'm totally down with that. I am. But I think that, we have to be aware of human rights. We can extreme vet people without violating their human rights.
So how is vetting people violating their human rights if it's in order to keep people safe? Because if you have nothing to hide, why will vetting you be of detriment to you?
talking about in vetting? I mean, what specifically is it that you want to see done that's not being done now?
I want to see far more done before people actually come in the country, and then when they come in the country, there should be periods of monitoring, and we should find out more about them and who they are, because that wasn't done in France and Germany. Look what has happened there.
Monitor their phone calls? Is that what we're going to do? Like,
no.
To record their phone calls?
No. I don't think it's about monitoring phone calls. I don't think it should
be actually very, very useful, but I don't know how we would get around our Constitution to do that, but I think that would actually be very
But don't you see, refugees shouldn't have constitutional rights, Margaret. Why should refugees have constitutional rights?
Oh, that gets into some ugly territory. I think most of our constitutional rights are basic human rights.
They are, but
we should be depriving people of human rights.
But how are people that are not citizens, are not resident, how do they feature in these rights? Because I can't get that right now.
Yeah, but how far are we going to go? Like, if you have herpes, you can't come into this country. Like, how far are we going to go?
I don't know. But but this is not about illness. This is about intent.
Which is very hard to discern.
It is. But to not try is not the answer.
Oh, I think we do try already. See, what I have a problem with is that there seems to be this attitude that we're not doing that at all, and that's really not true. I mean, I'm sponsoring an immigrant to immigrate into this country myself, and the scrutiny that she is under is really quite extraordinary. The scrutiny that I'm under for doing it is really quite extraordinary.
Well, when we see the things that are going on,
doing it. What is it specifically that we're not doing that you want to do?
Well, clearly there's something that we're not getting right, because these things are happening. These things are happening in other countries too. There's clearly something that we're not getting right that we need to work on. Because if we were getting it right, we wouldn't have all these radicalized people stabbing people and driving trucks into crowds of people on a Saturday night in London. There's something clearly that we're not doing that we need to be doing. Because otherwise, what we're saying is that this is not preventable. And if it's not preventable, then we should just give up right now.
Maybe it's not. I mean, I don't want to do that, but what if it's not?
I think that it has to be. Because
I hope it is. I mean, I do hope it is preventable. But what is it that's going to prevent it?
I don't know. That's what we need to be That's what we need to be assessing. But to just
monitor who they hang out with. You know, what if we monitor where they try to make friendships? You know, do they only make friendships with people who are the same as they are, or do they actually reach out and make friends with with people who are, I don't know, Baptists or something? But the thing is, the terrorists who flew planes into our towers on 9/11, some of them had girlfriends who were Baptists. So how do we do it? What do we do?
I'll take your word for that, because I don't know that for sure. But the thing is that to just
there's a lot of mystery around all that, isn't there?
Of course there is. If we're just gonna do nothing else, then these things will continue to happen. You know, most of these people that have committed these atrocities have actually been on watch lists. So what does that tell you?
That's true, but I think these three guys weren't, were they?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
And I am convinced that part of the reason why we have this problem is that authorities are too scared to say, what the F are you doing? Because they don't want to be called racist. They don't want to be called Islamophobic. But, here's the thing. If you live in our country, you live under our laws. And if there is a suspicion that you're doing something wrong, and you're not, and you get accused of it, who cares? Who cares?
But we don't want to be the KGB, do we? Yeah, I mean, we don't want to live like that.
Well, if that's what we have to do to keep people safe, then yes. Because you say we don't want to be the KGB, but there has to be something that changes in order to ensure the safety of the public.
Yes, but what? What is it? I think if you talk to somebody who lived through Russia in the 80s, they're not going to describe a great life.
Well,
Walking around with papers everywhere, and I had a guy who used to do my laundry who grew up in Russia, and he said he had pictures of the Beatles in one of his vest pockets when he was growing up in Russia because he loved the Beatles, and he got stopped on the street and they found the pictures, and they interrogated him about these people in these pictures for hours.
I don't think.
He didn't know it was the Beatles.
But I don't think that Russia is a very good example. Russia wasn't having a terror problem. They weren't having people stabbed on the streets for not being Muslims. So I don't think Russia in this is a very good example. And I think that ultimately, I'll tell you what I think needs to give. The first thing that needs to give is that we have to make sure authorities stop paying mind to feelings. Because you know what? If you get accused of something, I'm going to give you an example now. If you thought your neighbor was abusing her child, wouldn't you call social services right away?
If I thought or if I was sure?
If you thought. Because what if you thought and you did nothing and the kid ended up maimed or hurt or dead?
I think I would have to be sure. Because
yeah.
social services are they're pretty crazy. I wouldn't want to stick those people on somebody without.
They are, but don't you see? I brought this to a different level that you could associate with because you're a parent. But you know what? I would rather report everybody in the street and every kid be safe than not say anything and a kid be dead. You know?
I think that's a dangerous direction to go in.
Wow.
I really do. I do. I don't think we can report everyone for suspicions. We can't. We can't. It would ruin our peaceful world.
But you see, Margret, I love you, but you're now endorsing the PC brigade. We can't do this because it would this, and we can't do that because it would that. We have to do whatever it takes to keep people safe. And if that means offending people, if that means being seen to be Islamophobic, if it means to piss people off, then that's what we've got to do.
See, I don't agree. I don't think that we should become a paranoid state, a paranoid police state. I think that's extremely unhealthy.
But you hit the nail on the head there. Your analogy is an extreme, because we can actually do things to make a difference without it becoming a paranoid state. But it's imperative that we're on the lookout for these things because it happens.
I don't think we've ever seen an example of that that's worked, though. You're either a paranoid police state or you're a place where liberty exists and sometimes people slip through the cracks and cause major problems.
Well, I want to change the topic now because we're kind of like we've talked for this for quite a long time. But
it's days, darling. It's
I know
days.
it is. I was clean shaven when we first started talking about it. So I want to change. There's a lot of disagreement in the chat room, and I have to kind of acknowledge that. And the thing is that whilst we don't have to disagree, I still come back to the same point each time, and that's how many more people have to die before we stop being so damn politically correct. Because you know what? You can pull me in every week. I know I was on watch list under the Obama administration because I wasn't damn a conservative commentator. But I don't care about that because I'm patriotic. I love this country and I want what is best for it. And if that means offending a few people, so be it. I want to move on to the next story that really kind of pissed me off today, because a video of a white woman telling an Asian grocery store employee to go back to China while she contemplates ordering Chinese food is leaving a bad taste in the mouths of those who've seen it. Now, the footage from a foodie mart in Toronto showed the unidentified customer berating workers on Friday, claiming none of these people speak English, though clearly some of them did. Go back to China! This is Canada, English first country, the woman yells before insisting, if you're gonna work here, it is the law to know English. Now, that claim is also not true because, let's face it, there are hundreds and thousands of people in the United States that don't speak English and only speak Spanish. Another woman in the video can be seen trying to defuse the tense situation by attempting to help the angry customer. Toronto teen Frank Hong filmed the encounter and posted it on Facebook, where it's been viewed 941 times as of Tuesday afternoon. Now, Hong said he posted the video to show that Canada isn't safe from these disgusting attitudes and behaviors. It makes me nothing but mad, said the lady, had the audacity to spew such toxic words while exploiting POC cultures. Absolutely horrendous, he wrote on Facebook. Hong captured 84 seconds of the woman's xenophobic rant, but said he listened to her for 3 minutes and tried to intervene before deciding to film her. Now, both customers and employees were shocked by the tirade, Hong said. No employee who works so hard for such little money deserves this, and no human being in the world deserves this, he told local media. Grocery store employees said that the woman yelled at them for 15 to 20 minutes before leaving the store without buying anything. Although the video is receiving international attention, Toronto police said that they aren't investigating the encounter as hate-related incident and that no official complaint had been filed. Now, this really irks me because this woman's gone into the store, which is obviously selling Chinese goods and Chinese food, but is pissed that the people that are selling it are Chinese or Asian Canadians or whatever they're referred to.
Yeah, and don't you want it to be authentic?
Of course, yeah. If I go to get Chinese food and there's an Italian guy there, it's not the same. I'm sorry, it's not. I mean, some people would say that that's racist towards the Italians, but if I go for Chinese food, I want the people cooking it to be Chinese.
Yes, unless it's one of those little tortilla places here in New York, and the Mexicans are really good. The Mexicans are really good at that, but the Chinese are really better.
Yeah, exactly.
But listen, I think that kind of behavior is just unacceptable. Why would you treat another human being like that?
I was kind of infuriated by it. But the thing is that it's a real misconception that if you hear someone speaking Chinese, that means they're Chinese, because they might have been born in America or born in China and just speaking Chinese. Because I know from people I know that are Chinese. I've gone around to eat at their house, and their family all speak Chinese to each other. Which, in all honesty, I think is a bit ignorant when you've got someone that's English speaking there, but it's kind of like the done thing.
Well, do you think this woman may have been mentally ill?
I don't know. By the sounds of it, she wasn't all there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just don't see. I really can't find the sense in speaking to someone that way, or being that offended that someone is speaking a different language from you in your own country. I don't, where is the sense? I don't understand. What is her point exactly?
I have no idea. I just think that the thing is that we've got to have a level of respect for people, whether they happen to be born here or not. But when you're going into a Chinese food place and getting pissed because the person is talking Chinese, it's like, what next? I went to order a pizza and the guy was speaking in Italian. How dare they speak in Italian? I mean, don't they know that English is the language?
Yeah, exactly. Right? I mean, it's just so dumb. It's just so dumb.
It absolutely is. But I think it's happening more and more. And I think that people need to call it out. That was kind of part of what people were complaining about with regards to the two guys that were stabbed by the guy because they intervened when the two women in hijab were being attacked. And the thing is that it's one thing to disagree with people wearing hijab, but to go that far, it's a worry.
It is. It really is. I think it's mental illness. I really do. I think there's something seriously wrong with people who behave that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I do too. I think we've got time to look at our last topic, which is kind of interesting. It caught my eye for several reasons. But basically, a Michigan man whose farm was shut out of a local market over his same-sex marriage views believes his free speech rights have been violated. Stephen Tennis, who owns and operates Country Mill Farms in Charlotte, Michigan, filed a lawsuit on Wednesday, which is last week, I think. His farm was barred from selling produce at a farmer's market in East Lansing because, are you ready for this? He opposes marriage equality. Religion News Service reported. In his suit, Tennis cited his Catholic belief that marriage is a sacramental union between one man and one woman. The married father of 5 basically said that his farm serves and employs members of the local LGBTQ ABCDFG community, but nonetheless expressed his opposition to marriage equality twice on Facebook, once in August and once again in December. After the August post sparked a backlash, Tennis said Country Mill Farms would no longer host weddings of any kind. Now, by December, the farm announced that weddings would resume on the property, but only for heterosexual couples. It remains our deeply held religious belief that marriage is the union of one man and one woman, and Country Mills has the First Amendment right to express and act upon its beliefs. So when Tennis applied to be a part of the East Lansing Farmers Market in January, his permit application was denied, and in an interview with Lansing State Journal, East Lansing City Manager George Lohanis confirmed that Country Mill Farms' permit had been turned down, citing the city's civil rights ordinance, which includes sexual orientation and gender identity as protected classes. But Christians aren't. All business practices, when they applied, he said, we decided to exclude them from the market based upon that. Now, Tennis says he was surprised by the decision. For over 7 years, he's been serving customers with no complaints, no issues, no protests, he said. And basically, he said he's covered by the Religious Freedom Act and an advocacy group defending freedom, which is representing him. He wants a judge to order East Lansing not to only allow Country Mill Farms to sell produce at the market again, but also to stop the city from being allowed to extend its policies to businesses outside its bounds. So I don't know what you make of this, Margaret, because I'm openly gay, and I want everybody to have the same rights under the law. But where I have a problem with the Same-Sex Marriage Act is that it actually includes too many things that are actually negative with regards to Christians and forces them to comply. I don't think anybody should be forced to make a cake for me because they don't agree with me or how I choose to live. I don't feel that anybody should be made to perform services for me because they disagree with a choice that I'm making, because that's slavery. But shouldn't we be able to agree to disagree without suing everybody all the time?
Yes, please. I mean, this is just such a silly thing to be. Again, I feel like this is mental illness. How does it even affect you that gay people are allowed to get married? It doesn't affect my marriage. It doesn't affect my life at all. It just means there's more parties for me to go to.
Right. I see that, but
understand.
But when it does begin to affect people is when, as a Christian, someone objects to same-sex marriage. He even said he employs gay people. He has gay people at the farm. But for him, in his religious beliefs, that marriage is between a man and a woman. And surely, under American law, that should be his prerogative. But the Same-Sex Marriage Act contains parts that say that you're not allowed to disagree with it, and if you refuse to perform a service, you can be fined for that. And that's not fair.
Well, bottom of why Christians think that it's anti-Christian for same-sex couples to exist. It was totally political. It was because the church wanted to produce more believers. So a same-sex marriage was not going to produce a child. It was not going to produce more believers. And so that's why it was banned by the church. It has nothing to do with anything Jesus ever said.
But the Bible teaches that marriage is between a man and a woman. I mean, I've got
Well,
yeah. Let me finish. Let me finish.
By very political people.
Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. Now there are a lot of gay people that agree with that, including myself. I'm a Christian, but I want gay people to have the same rights as and responsibilities as everybody else. You know, everybody deserves to have a mother-in-law that they hate. But, you know, the thing is that the Obama administration had the opportunity, and it was recommended to them, to change the civil partnership laws to enable the same rights and responsibilities as heterosexual marriage, and they refused to do so because they wanted to politicize same-sex marriage, and that's not fair to Christians, because there are a lot of people out there that love Xander Gibb, but if I said I'm marrying a man in a church, a lot of my friends would probably not come to that because of that ideology. And, you know, I have to respect that. I mean, I wouldn't get married to a man in a church because I wouldn't feel right before God doing that. I might go to a park or floral gardens and share vows with someone that I loved. And I might even say that I was married. But I would not want to involve the church in that, because I believe, even though I'm a gay man, that marriage is between a man and a woman. Wait, sorry. Let me change that. Holy matrimony, as in marriage, is between a man and a woman.
There you go. It's two different things. We're talking about two different things. And I think we cannot collapse the two. We can't. There are marriages that are accepted by the state and that are not accepted by the church. And each have their prerogatives to do that. And each have their set of criteria.
And that's absolutely fair. But my point goes back to the same thing every time, that we should not be forcing people to comply or to like it. Because, you know, if I go to get a cake made and they say, sorry, Zen, I don't want to do that for you for your celebration. I love you, but I don't agree with same-sex marriage. Why am I going to give them my business anyway? You know, market forces will ensue long term. But if you have principles and you stand by them, you should not be penalized for doing so.
Well, there is a personal viewpoint there that is valid, and there's also a legal viewpoint. So, you know, if you are a public company, then you have to behave according to the laws of the state.
Even if you're a private company, you do.
Exactly.
But that should not be the case.
You can't pick and choose what laws you're going to comply with.
But Margaret,
you have personal religious beliefs.
But Margaret,
of church and state in this country.
We do. But when the law is a bullshit law, it's a concern. If they'd have put that through without that Christian aspect in, I would have kept my mouth shut and said nothing. But to force Christians to like a same-sex marriage is not acceptable. It is not acceptable, because that is the state getting involved between church and state when there's a separation. You cannot force Christians to do something they disagree with, because that's slavery. And we outlawed slavery years ago. You don't get the right, just because you're gay, to say, make this cake or I'm going to sue you. Because that's not fair to people who don't agree with your choices. And I'm not even getting into the hate part of it, because, you know, there are some people that would do it because they hate gay people, and that's absolutely wrong. But if your reasoning is because you're a Christian and you identify that marriage is between a man and a woman, as a gay man living in the United States, I will respect you for that. Because it shouldn't be for me to tell you what to do. The Bible is what you should look to for guidance, not what Barack Obama says as part of his same-sex marriage mumbo-jumbo, because he took what was... there were some changes that were needed. I totally agree with that. But what he did was he took that need and he politicized it, and that's the concern for me.
Yeah, but wait a second. I mean, are we going to allow men to have more than one wife? That's in the Bible.
No, because that's a different issue, and yeah, of course it is.
Huh? I don't think so.
Well, I certainly do. Because ultimately, when you start, because that's kind of like, I hate to say this, and you know I love you, but that is a typical liberal response, Margaret.
Yeah, but Mormons, look, Utah gave that up because it became more important to them to be part of the union than it was to abide by their own religion.
Right. Let me just ask you this, because we're coming to the end of our time together. But I want to ask you this. This is a question from the live feed. Ask Margaret why Muslim bakeries never get asked to bake a cake for a gay wedding. They did it to Christian bakeries for political reasons, and I have to agree with that. I really do.
Because Muslims will kill you.
Muslims will not kill you in America.
That's why, because people are more afraid of being shot in the head or having their heads removed entirely.
Well,
that's why nobody asks a Muslim bakery to make a gay cake. Please.
Well, you know, interestingly enough, none of my Muslim friends.
Piss off a Christian.
None of my Muslim. Yeah, but they're not. This is the thing. You cannot prosecute a Muslim for it. It's just a Christian. If you go to a Muslim bakery as a gay couple and ask them to bake you a cake and they refuse...
That's wrong, Xander. You can prosecute.
No, you can't.
You absolutely can't. Yes,
you can't, because the statute doesn't cover is Islamic businesses. It only covers Christian businesses. And
that's not true.
Well, it is, Margaret. I did a lot of research on this when this was in its when this act was in its infancy. It does not cover it doesn't cover Islamic bakeries. You know, a police officer went to Walmart and said he wanted to make a cake that said "Blue Lives Matter." They refused to make the cake for him. But if he'd have been gay, he could have sued them. But because he wasn't gay, there was not a thing that he could do. You know, gay...
I just want to be clear. I think it's ridiculous to force your lifestyle or your opinion upon someone who has a religious belief that is not compliant with it, as long as we're not, like, murdering or killing anybody.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
I think that, morally speaking, that is a ridiculous behavior. It's just as bad as the woman in Canada screaming at the Chinese person to stop speaking Chinese just because they're in Canada.
Wait. You're saying so someone refusing to make a gay cake for a gay couple is just as bad as the person?
No. I'm saying that somebody refusing to make a gay cake for a gay couple on the grounds that they are Christian should be allowed to just refuse to do that.
Right.
Morally speaking. However, when it comes to matters of state, if you're going to escalate it to matters of state, I'm sorry, but the religious person loses. It's two different things.
Why does we have to
What kind of person do you want to be? Right? What kind of person do you want to be?
I'll tell you, Margaret, I want to be...
A good person doesn't go to a Christian and say, you have to make this cake for me because...
But that's the point...
And fuck you because you're Christian.
Yeah, but that's the point...
Do that.
That's the point I'm making.
He can.
That's exactly the point that I'm making, and that's the concern. We got to draw this to a close. But you know, I just want to add one thing, and that's that. You know, I want to be right before God before I'm right before the LGBT, ABCDFTG community, because that's the biggest concern for me. But as a caveat to that, I want to add this, and this is a point I want to close on because we're so out of time. that whilst maintaining the courage of our convictions, we must remain compassionate on both sides of this argument.
Correct.
We are out of time. Thank you to everyone that's made today's show possible. Thanks to my fabulous co-host, Margret Echeverria. Tell people where they can find you, Margret.
You can find me on margaretecheverria.com. You can also find my theater reviews on thefrontrowcenter.com. And you can also find my film on hookedproject.com. That's my latest film. And I've also got another film coming out this summer called Fairy Tales for the Fatherless. Be on the lookout for that film.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Margret. And we will speak to you very soon. Have a wonderful week.
You too, honey.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was Margret Echeverria. Make sure you check her out. All of her contact information is on the X-RAD Facebook show page for today. We are totally out of time. Stick around. Go over to the Joe Messina show, The Real Side. If you want to support the show, you can buy the book, The Boy from Beyond the Ice House. You can buy the CD, which is called The Platinum Prequel. And you can also donate to the show. I'm just sharing the links for you now. Thanks to everybody in the live feed. Far too many to name. Thanks for sharing. We are totally out of time. We will be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. Go away. For sharing. We are totally... And we will be back with you tomorrow with Andrea Kay and Julio Rivera. I love you all. Take care. Bye.
Love, it has been good to me this time around. Things were never bound to change when it was found. Sugar